Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Matt finally corners Mariah and drops the truth about Ian Ward. Time seems to stall in the middle of the Newman Media building, the hum of distant conversations fading into a dull roar as his words land with the force of a wrecking ball, and Mariah, who has spent years rebuilding herself piece by fragile piece after surviving manipulation, lies, and the long shadow Ian cast over her life, feels the ground tilt beneath her feet as Matt confesses that Ian isn't just a ghost from her past or a name whispered in fear, but a living, breathing presence whose influence never truly loosened its grip. And as Matt speaks, his voice low, urgent, and shaking with the weight of what he's been carrying, he reveals that Ian has been operating behind the scenes for months, pulling strings through shell companies, fake charities, and anonymous donors, subtly infiltrating Genoa City once again. Not with the flamboyant menace he once wielded, but with the quiet, calculated patience of a man who has learned that real power comes from remaining unseen. And Mariah's shock isn't just about Ian being back. It's about how close he's been, how he's brushed past her life like a cold draft she couldn't quite explain, from strange glitches at work to unsettling coincidences that made her doubt her instincts. And Matt admits that he discovered the truth by accident while investigating irregular financial transfers tied to a so-called spiritual wellness foundation, a foundation that promised healing and redemption, Ian Ward's favorite language. And as Matt recounts following the paper trail, recognizing patterns eerily similar to the cult structures Ian once used, Mariah's mind floods with memories she thought she had buried. The suffocating sense of being owned, the twisted affection masquerading as salvation, the way Ian could look into her eyes and convince her that pain was love and obedience was freedom. And she stumbles back a step, gripping the edge of a desk as if it's the only thing anchoring her to the present. Because Matt doesn't stop there, his confessions spiraling deeper into nightmare territory as he reveals that Ian has been asking questions about her specifically, requesting updates through intermediaries, monitoring her career, her relationships, her vulnerabilities, as though she has always been the centerpiece of a long game he never stopped playing. And Mariah's stunned silence is louder than any scream as she struggles to reconcile the life she's built, her work, her chosen family, her hard-earned sense of self, with the possibility that Ian has been watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to step back into her world. And Matt's guilt spills out as he admits he hesitated to tell her, terrified that exposing the truth would reopen wounds she fought so hard to heal. But he couldn't stay silent after learning that Ian's latest project isn't just financial manipulation but psychological re-entry, using former followers and new recruits to create situations designed to destabilize Mariah emotionally, to make her doubt her autonomy and sense of safety. And when Matt finally says the words that truly shatter her composure, that Ian believes Mariah still belongs to him in some spiritual sense, her breath catches, a bitter laugh escaping her lips because it's so horrifying it almost sounds absurd. Except she knows Ian well enough to understand that this belief is deadly serious, and in that moment the years collapse, past and present colliding as Mariah flashes back to being young and lost, craving validation, and how easily Ian exploited that hunger. And she realizes with sickening clarity that this isn't about revenge or money for him. It's about control, about reclaiming what he sees as unfinished business. And Matt's voice cracks as he tells her he thinks Ian is orchestrating something bigger, something that could involve Newman Media, faith-based programming pitches, or even political influence cloaked in moral righteousness. A strategy designed to give Ian legitimacy and protection while he tightens his grip on those he deems his children. And Mariah finally finds her voice, asking in a whisper how long Matt has known, how long this threat has been hovering just out of sight. And when he admits it's been weeks, maybe months, her eyes burn with a mix of fear, anger, and betrayal. Not just at Matt, but at the universe that seems determined to test her resilience again and again. And yet beneath the shock there's something else stirring, something harder and sharper than fear, because Mariah isn't the broken girl Ian once preyed upon. She's a survivor who learned the cost of silence and the power of truth. And as the initial wave of stunned disbelief recedes, she begins to ask questions, precise and focused, about Ian's network, his funding sources, his potential allies in Genoa City, signaling a shift from victim to strategist that Matt hadn't fully anticipated, and he watches with awe as Mariah steadies herself, straightens her shoulders, and declares that Ian doesn't get to haunt her life anymore, that if he's back, she wants him exposed, dismantled, and stripped of every illusion of righteousness he's hiding behind. And yet, even as she speaks with defiant clarity, the emotional toll is undeniable, because every revelation Matt shared has reopened scars she's spent years tending, and when she's alone later, the walls she held up finally crack, tears streaming as she grapples with the cruel irony that just when she believed she was truly free, the man who once defined her captivity has resurfaced, and the ripple effects of Matt's confession spread quickly through her relationships, complicating her sense of trust and safety, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about how much of her past still has the power to hurt her. And as night falls over Genoa City, Mariah stares out at the lights, haunted by the knowledge that Ian Ward is closer than ever, not as a distant villain but as a calculating presence who believes time has been on his side, unaware that Mariah's greatest secret now is her strength, her refusal to be silent, and her determination to confront the darkness head-on, because this time, the story won't end with Ian holding all the power. It will end with Mariah reclaiming every part of herself he tried to steal, even if the path forward is terrifying, uncertain, and fraught with danger. And in that quiet, breathless aftermath of Matt's revelation, one truth becomes undeniable. Ian Ward's return isn't just a shock, it's the opening move in a battle that will test Mariah's courage, resilience, and the very meaning of freedom in Genoa City. The shockwaves of Matt's revelation don't fade with the night. Instead, they burrow deep into Mariah's thoughts, resurfacing in fragments and echoes as she moves through the next day in a haze, every familiar hallway in Genoa City suddenly feeling like hostile territory, every smile from a colleague carrying an unspoken question of who can truly be trusted, because once you know someone like Ian Ward is back in play, innocence becomes a luxury you can't afford, and Mariah feels that loss acutely as she forces herself to keep functioning, to host meetings, to laugh at the right moments, all while her mind relentlessly replays Matt's words, dissecting them, searching for meaning, strategy, and threat. And when she finally confronts him again, demanding every scrap of information he hasn't yet shared, Matt admits that Ian's reach is broader than he initially believed, that his influence threads through unexpected corners of Genoa City society, from fringe faith leaders hungry for relevance to wealthy benefactors craving moral absolution. And the most chilling part is how Ian has learned to weaponize modern respectability, presenting himself not as a cult leader but as a redeemed spiritual advisor, a man who claims he has renounced manipulation while quietly perfecting it. And Mariah realizes that this version of Ian is more dangerous than ever, because he no longer needs blind devotion alone. He has optics, lawyers, and carefully curated narratives. And as Matt describes how Ian's associates test boundaries, subtly probing Mariah's emotional state through anonymous messages, planted encounters, and carefully timed reminders of her past, she feels a surge of anger burn through her fear, recognizing the psychological tactics instantly, because she lived them, survived them, and now refuses to be defined by them again. Yet even with that resolve, there are moments when vulnerability slips through, when she wonders if Ian knows exactly which scars to press to make her unravel, and that fear intensifies when she begins to notice patterns herself, an unfamiliar face lingering too long outside her office, a voicemail that cuts off just before a voice can be identified, an email praising her strength in eerily intimate terms, each incident small enough to dismiss, but together forming a constellation of menace that keeps her heart pounding long after she's alone. And as she confides in a select few people she trusts, the reactions vary from protective outrage to quiet alarm, and Mariah understands then that Ian's return isn't just her burden, it's a threat that could poison the entire community if left unchecked, because history has proven that his influence thrives in silence and shame, and she refuses to let either take root again. So she begins to prepare, not impulsively but deliberately, drawing on years of hard-earned self-awareness and resilience, documenting every interaction, every coincidence, every whisper of manipulation, transforming her trauma into evidence. And this process is both empowering and exhausting, because every note she takes forces her to relive pieces of her past, to name abuses she once survived by not naming, and some nights she lies awake questioning whether she's strong enough to endure this again, whether survival once guarantees survival twice. But then she remembers the people who stood by her, the life she built, the voice she reclaimed, and those memories steel her resolve. And Matt, racked with guilt yet determined to help, becomes an unlikely ally in this quiet war, using his resources to dig deeper into Ian's finances, uncovering links that suggest a larger endgame involving media influence and public opinion, a plan to position Ian as a moral authority whose endorsement could sway elections, corporations, even court cases, and the scope of it is staggering. Because it means Ian isn't just targeting Mariah out of obsession, he's using her as a symbolic conquest, proof to himself that he can reclaim anyone, anytime, no matter how far they think they've escaped. And this realization hardens Mariah's stance from defensive to proactive, because she knows now that confronting Ian isn't just about personal closure, it's about stopping a predator before he can entangle others, especially those as vulnerable as she once was.